The Addams Family. Da-da-da-da. 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 They're creepy and they're kooky. I'm talking about my daddy. This gentleman psychic is fun, but he's also really weird. And I like it.
Here at the Higgins-Verbeck-Hirsch Mansion. It was built in 1902 and first located on Wilshire Boulevard at Rampart Street, where owner Hiram Higgins worked in the grain industry. In 1924, it was purchased by Howard Verbeck, an interior designer, and relocated into 3 sections to its present spot. Following the Great Depression, the house took a toll of neglect as it was used for retired nuns, a mission, a boarding house for actors, and offices. It only survives today thanks to the efforts of the Hirsch family that spent many years restoring it. It is considered a LA landmark.
Also, this house was featured in the 1970s. Was it 77?
77.
1977, Halloween with the Addams Family.
Yep.
It was, to say the least, dreadful.
Yeah, they passed it off as the new Addams Family. It was not including all of the cast members, unfortunately, but we'll talk a little bit about that on our tour. Restrictions here, we're not actually able to go through the gates and see the lawn where the Addams Family house sat. However, we are here. This does appear to be very similar to what John Astin used on
in the very first episode. You see the house behind him. John Astin is filing the spikes, which was a direct comic from Charles Addams.
Yeah.
So it was actually in the house that was right over there. In the first episode, that was the only time the actual house appeared in the show.
So strangely, another Addams Family structure happens to be associated with a religious institution here at 21 Chester Place. It was the original location, the first Addams Family house, as seen in the 1960s TV series. The house, which unfortunately no longer stands, has its plot inside Mount St. Mary's College. It was completed in 1888. That's how old this house was. And although the house was shown in the first episode, introductions and publicity shots, the house was painted after that. Unlike the Addams Mansion, the actual place had just 2 floors. So what they did is they added a 3rd floor,
matte painting,
and a tower over it so that it could be seen as the real Addams Family house.
Because it was inspired by a real house in New Jersey that Charles Addams had gone by as a child.
Now the history here is that Henry G. Newhall was its first resident. He was the eldest son of Henry Mayo Newhall that owned land that would later become areas of Santa Clarita. So if you live here, you know about the Newhall name. Now several amenities came to the site, including a streetcar that ran south on Main Street, and it was an ideal setting for wealthy Victorians that flocked to the new Addams district in the late 1890s. Now that was something to have the Addams
The Addams
district name, right?
But it was ADAMS, which ironically, Charles Addams, he is akin to Addams, the founder, one of the founders of the United States. But his grandfather was receiving mail whose neighbor was Addams as well. So he went, well, we have the same name, front and back, John Addams. So his grandfather added the second D. Fine, I'll have Addams, ADDAMS.
Now, interestingly, another fun fact is that the Addams family house here had several addresses, just like the TV and movie house. And it was because of its position so far from the street. If we actually look here, look how far from the street. And the street is right where the camera is, basically. You'd be driving to that house. The city could not agree on where to place it. Now, I don't remember all the different addresses in the Addams Family TV series.
Well, in the TV series, the address was 0001 Cemetery Lane.
Yep.
Then, of course, in the new Addams Family,
It's like 13.
that was 1313 as a throwback to the Munsters.
There we go. Now, some more history. The Newhalls had squandered their father's money, and it was sold in 1911. There was a wealthy elitist named Jenny Rowe and her new husband, who was a traveling evangelist, Gorham Tufts. Now that's some name there.
That's a tough name.
They became the new owners. However, a year later, guess what? He was jailed for his act of trying to defraud his wife's share out of the home. Go figure, an evangelist defrauding.
Never heard of that before. That never happened.
The new one, huh? The estate was again sold, but this time to the oil-rich Dohenis that bought up much of the area. Estelle Doheny made it a rental property. At one time, I think for around 20 years, you could rent the house and live there. Now, when Estelle died in 1958, she willed the land to the Roman Catholic Archdiocese, who gave it to Mount St. Mary's College. Well, that means that Mount St. Mary's actually had it open for the Addams family to film it. They used it for housing briefly. They had teachers there and students before it was demolition for parking. Perhaps an Addams family house did not sit well with the Archbishop. Any more to say on that, you think?
That was really good. On to the next.
Yep.
Lucky little devil, they all want some loving from you, like I surely do. Lucky little devil, I worry more and more over your popularity. How can I picture you getting sweeter?
And they're kooky, mysterious, and spooky, and they were filmed right here at this studio, Sunset Gal. What is it called? Las Palmas Studio.
Yeah, right on stage 3-8, you would find the Addams family being filmed in the 1991 movie, as well as the TV series back in the 60s. At the time, it was called the Hollywood Center Studios, and the TV series actually shared space with Beverly Hillbillies, The Lone Ranger, Mr. Ed, everyone's favorite horse, right?
Of course.
And another favorite of mine, Get Smart. That's just to name a few.
That was a very good one. I love Get Smart.
So, if we want to take a look inside here, they're probably filming right now, so you got to be quiet, and that's why we can't actually enter. So, off to our next destination. We'd like to thank Vanessa, who gave us
very lovely.
a quick
Just
tour.
a quick tour of the inside of Carolyn Jones's house. Very lovely.
Carolyn Jones was born in Amarillo, Texas. Her father was a barber who abandoned the family at an early age, and Carolyn stayed mostly indoors from severe asthma. She spent her childhood reading, especially Hollywood magazines, which inspired her to enroll in the Pasadena Playhouse, thanks to her grandfather's support. She was quickly noticed and secured a contract with Paramount Pictures, launching her into her first film, The Turning Point, in 1952. She married Aaron Spelling the following year and was cast in various acclaimed roles in both TV and film. One of my favorite was Vincent Price's House of Wax.
Oh, that was a good one. Oh, yes.
She played Joan of Arc in that. And after several nominations, in 1957, she shared a Golden Globe Award for New Star of the Year actress. And by 1964, she put on a black wig as Morticia Addams. Sadly, in 1981, Carolyn was secretly battling colon cancer, telling colleagues she just had ulcers. But the cancer returned, and in July of 1983, she fell into a coma at her home and passed on August 3rd, 1983. Is your goal to get it back to sort of the way it was, or
What?
is your goal to get it back?
Well, I like to keep the integrity of original houses,
That's
but
great.
then you have to adapt them to contemporary life.
Uh-huh.
My intention is to rent it out once I've got it in good shape.
Oh, excellent.
I'm not going to spend a lot on it, but I'm going to I'm going to put the roof back the way it was. Maybe get rid of a lot of this.
Yeah.
If I see any more of that, I think I shall have a nervous breakdown.
Jackie Coogan was born in 1914 in Los Angeles and took to the stage as an infant in vaudeville and film. Charlie Chaplin saw him at the Orpheum Theater, a vaudeville house, doing a shimmy dance. Chaplin was charmed with his mimicry and abilities and cast him in 2 films, one of which was as an abandoned child raised by Chaplin as his infamous tramp character. The 1921 film was titled The Kid, and it would be a first of a string of success. At the age of 10, he joined the Urban Military Academy and attended several colleges in later teens, including USC. Tragically, though, in 1935, Jackie was the sole survivor of a car accident that killed his father, a best friend, and 2 others. By 21, Jackie was worth around $3 to $4 million from acting and merchandising. Still, his father's management of his career was now in the hands of his mother and stepfather, and they depleted his funds on fur coats, jewelry, and expensive cars. The mother insisted no promises were ever made to give Jackie anything, and further said he was a bad boy, as if all his hard work deemed nothing in return. Jackie sued, but received little of his earnings and had to ask Chaplin for help with bills. What became of this was protection for child actors known as the Coogan Act, a law that required an actor's employer set aside 15% of the earnings in a trust. Thank goodness for that, Jackie. He was not only a brilliant actor, but also served bravely in the U.S. Army as a glider pilot, flying behind enemy lines to deliver troops. He returned to acting in small parts before landing Uncle Fester in 1964. He continued with mostly guest roles until his retirement in the mid-1970s. On March 1st, 1984, Jackie passed from heart and kidney problems. Now, our daughter here is going to demonstrate the dance, which was mentioned, called the shimmy. Would you like to do that? Stand up. Excellent. We're going to spend some time here to reflect and be with Jackie and and then we'll come to the next location shortly. Of course, that is the famous line that Ted Cassidy, who played Lurch, would say on the Addams Family. And
Lurch is our butler.
you know, Ted Cassidy was born in Pittsburgh and he was raised in West Virginia. Ted was a gifted child, attending 3rd grade at the age of 6. At the same time, he was just 11 years old when he was over 6 feet tall, and playing on both the football and the basketball teams. It was hardly glorious, though, as he was often the victim of bullying. In college, Ted graduated with high acclaim in speech and drama and continued playing basketball and being involved in student government. In 1956, he married Margaret Helen Jesse and moved to Dallas, where he worked as a midday disc jockey. Notably, he also played a character called Creech, a space alien on the local TV station for a show called Dialing for Dollars, and gave an in-studio report and interviews surrounding the John F. Kennedy assassination. Ted was typecasted for unusual roles, but this worked to his advantage when he tried out for Lurch and Thing. Interestingly, Ted was so good in the role that Lurch was supposed to be mute, but quickly was given lines when Ted off-script called out, "You rang." Too much laughter. Not only was it a tagline, but several episodes even wanted to feature Lurch. Lurch's harpsichord always seemed close by when Ted ventured into other shows, including Batman and Wild Wild West, to name a few. Along with acting, Ted took up voice work and was a favorite even in Star Trek. A successful history of TV and film and a hit song called The Lurch was released in 1965. And in 1979, Ted had surgery to remove a non-malignant tumor on his heart, but complications erupted, and sadly on January 16, 1979, he passed at just the age of 46. In the backyard of this house here, his ashes were buried.
Side note, funny thing about Ted Cassidy and the Addams Family is, yes, he was popular and famous for playing the butler, but originally they didn't know who was going to play the father, who was going to play the butler, because in the original series it didn't really know who was who. Well, John Astin got the role of the father and not the butler, and Ted Cassidy got the role of the butler, not the father. Funny thing.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next stop, which is for Ken Weatherwax.
Ken Weatherwax,
Oh.
Pugsley. I'm going to tell you a little
of course.
story about Pugsley. So originally in the series, in 1964, none of the family had names, none of them. And so Pubert was going to be the name of Pugsley, but the studio went, no, that's too much like puberty, we can't do that, no. So it became Pugsley, Ken Weatherwax.
And Ken Weatherwax, of course, he was born in Los Angeles in a show business family, and for several members of his family actually worked on the Lassie show, if you recall that. But it would be Ken's work as a 9-year-old starring first in a Gleam toothpaste commercial that would put him into the role of Pugsley Addams. After Addams Family, Ken found it hard to break the Pugsley role when looking for jobs, and instead entered the U.S. Army when he was just 17, and then afterwards worked behind the camera as a movie studio grip and set builder. He occasionally made appearances with former co-star Lisa Loring, who played, of course, his sister Wednesday. But at 59 years old, Ken passed from a heart attack on December 7th, 2014. And the dearly departed tours were the ones that actually helped place raise funds to have Ken intern here at Valhalla Memorial Park in North Hollywood. And just like Pugsley, he's off hiding somewhere.
Yeah, he's probably
He is-
playing with his pet alligator.
Yep, present, but it's up to you to find him. Wow, we are here.
We are finally here at the end of our tour.
I feel like Alice on the 8th square, and guess what? We went to 8 stops.
This
How
is
about
quite right. And for those of you who are trying to find out, we watched someone who found Blossom Rock. It is by a cul-de-sac on the hill. Just look for that, and then you can find Blossom Rock.
So we all day took this tour, all around parts of Los Angeles, but the greatest of all is, of course, being here with the very talented Blossom Rock. Now, Blossom was born August 21st, 1895 in Philadelphia. In childhood, she was a vaudeville performer with her younger sister, Jeanette. In 1926, she married actor Clarence Warren Rock, who is right beside her. They later had an act together in New York City called Rock and Blossom. It lasted for about 4 years before Clarence died in 1960. Blossom went on to play roles in films under the name Marie Blake, where she had a significant part in Love Finds Andy Hardy in 1938, and notably as Sally, the hospital switchboard operator in Dr. Kildare's film series. By the 1950s, she was using her real name and got the part to play Grandmama. After season 2 of The Addams Family concluded, Blossom had a stroke that complicated her speech, and she passed on January 14th, 1978 in Los Angeles at 82.
Love to you, Ms. Blossom Rock.
That wraps up our tour, but I'm sure it's not going to be the last that we see of each other and our family.
That is
came
very
together.
true. So you can follow my good friend Lorin Morgan-Richards. You can find out more. You've got some books you were working on. You've got some things. Tell a little bit about what you've got going on.
Yeah, check out LorinRichards.com. Lorin spelled Lorin, Richards.com. I do have an animated series that I'm working on for the Goodbye family. It's a Old West, Weird West, Gothic Western about funeral home operators and their child who is sheriff and has the strength of 20 men, basically. So that's about it. Yeah.
Well, stick around. We've got a few more little shots to show you. And until next time, I'm your host, Richard-Lael Lillard, the Gentleman Psychic.
Lucky little devil, the whole world is wild about you. That's why I'm so blue. Lucky little devil, they all want some loving from you, like I surely do. Lucky little devil, I worry more and more over your popularity. How can I picture you getting sweet on me? Lucky little devil, your love dreams are bound to come true. I wish mine would too. Lucky little devil.